I'm watching through this thing with Carlin on Chris Rock, and they're talking, and I've never seen this thing before, and I'm just impressed. You know, there's a very, very good line of questioning, and it's just driving them down paths. And he speaks about the time when he changed. We all know about this, where he was trying to be the suited comedian that he grew up with, seeing, and he said, wait, these are not my people. These are old fuddy-duddies. They're not quite digging my groove. And he said how it was when he realized that as a 9-year-old boy, he didn't want to be Danny Kaye doing this. He wanted to be Danny Kaye as a kid. And I've heard this again and again through his interviews. He highly admired the comedic work of Danny Kaye. But he realized during something like 1971, he's like, that's the mindset of a 9-year-old kid. Somebody who thought, but he didn't realize his mind had changed over those years. Oh shit, did my 2 pages show? See, that's a constant reminder. Age. We all take our turns. It's a lot of fun. And I realized, as he's saying this thing about the difference between a 9-year-old mindset and somebody that's in their early 20s or wherever the hell they are, mid-20s, 1971 later, he did spend time in the Air Force. He spent time on the radio. He spent time in the New York coffee houses doing comedy, and he was skyrocketed straight to LA, and he happened very fast, George Carlin. But it's just one more thing that he was trying to steal from me. But he didn't have the background to the story. He's talking about the not realizing the way the mind changes between 9 years old and as this young adult that's spreading himself out into the world. It's the alligator in the pond. See, he just didn't have the story. Otherwise, he'd have been able to steal my idea. Carlin. Nevada. My childhood home, which I consider my childhood home, until about the age of 6, where there were snakes all over, and there were video cameras of me holding snakes at a barbecue. Snake handler. John 3:14. And the nephews of the neighbor, who was the father of my first and oldest friend, my very first friend I've ever had in my memory, Billy Beans. But this is a person. He lived next door. His cousins drowned in a pond down the road from where I would soon move to live. And all the time, these cars were coming up and parking in front of our house because they had the wrong address, just to stare at the pond where this guy's kids had died. Billy Beans was still living next door. I got him somewhere here. He'll come back in time. And so after that, my dad would say, there's an alligator in the pond. And Billy Beans, his dad, once saw us climb over the fence to get a Frisbee, and he yelled at us. It's the only time he ever yelled at me in his life, and only the second time he was ever very somber and serious. First time. Second time, it was, you make an ass out of yourself when you're drinking, Judas. Yeah, I know. So he was a straightforward guy, but he yelled at us when we were climbing over to get the Frisbee, and my dad said there was an alligator in the pond to keep us out of the pond as young children. And so there was the one time we were in our pond. He had a little pond. He pumped it. He created the whole thing. It's gone to detritus. No, it's useless, because over the last 40 to 50 years, nobody ever took care of what my dad built, and it just grew in and became a vegetative wasteland rather than a pond that you could get in a little boat and cruise around with the Evinrude. And I was with my dad the one time, and all the kids were in the boat around this. It's just a little pond. It's a frog pond, like the kind of pond that frogs and the trout come up and feed when you come over to the shoreline. They were planted, I'm sure, but not like we had a lot of money to have a trout pond. Who knows what the hell, how those trout got there. But the one time going around in the boat, little circles, this log came up. And my dad said, it's the alligator. And I said, oh no. And I remembered for years and years that an alligator came up out of the pond. But then I also remember arguing with Dave Seal about how there are no, he's saying there are no alligators in Michigan, which I've found to be false, because Battle Creek will be releasing the alligators very soon into their alligator farm. There was a guy there working, he had like 2 fingers and they're all bitten off the rest of them. I'm like, this is a real alligator farm. You don't want to show up there on your period. But this is the point, the alligator in the pond that George Carlin went through. He said, I realized my mind wasn't that 9-year-old kid anymore. His mind had developed basically on its own without the 9-year-old, but the 9-year-old held sway. And it made me think, there's one more joke you didn't steal from me, George. It's the alligator in the pond. You grew up believing something happened all these years, and you know it didn't happen, but you never really consider it. You just believe what they say because that's the way it was. There's a tweak in our mind that doesn't allow us to step to the next level. Here we are. We're living in the time of the alligator in the pond.